Hello there. It's been a few days since I recorded a video for various reasons. I've not been in a yapping mood, so I've not done any sipping and talking. I got several in the can, so no big deal. And it wasn't till tonight that I had anything to review, since I don't buy bottles just to review. What I buy I intend to drink, which means a lot of what I buy I already know I like. But tonight came up a bottle I just got recently, and that goes back to my hospital stay, which I've mentioned in various videos. Whether I've even uploaded any of them already, I don't know. As I mentioned before, I record them, then I randomize them and upload in whatever order. So I may not have mentioned that I was in the hospital back in February 13th. In fact, I went to the hospital, had some heart trouble, not a heart attack, not a heart attack. There's people, you say heart, they think heart attack. Oh no! You know, a lot of things can happen besides a heart attack. You know, you can have a pain in your gut without it being cancer, right? You can have a pain in your chest without it being a heart attack, and it wasn't. But when I got out, you know, got a pretty good bill of health, only one blockage, it's completely cleared. And so I wanted something to celebrate, went to, excuse me, here we go. Went to Kelly Liquors and couldn't make up my mind what I wanted to get to celebrate. I'm trying something new, which I don't know if I'm going to keep up with, but it requires a little fiddle as I go. Couldn't quite make up my mind, so I asked for recommendations, and they poured me a little sample cup of Devil's River agave bourbon. Now, I don't know whether you can call something whiskey where one of the three ingredients in the mash bill is not a grain, but apparently the Tax and Trade Bureau of the ATF, which regulates whiskey production, apparently they don't mind. This is bourbon where one of the ingredients is agave. The same, I can't remember if it's specifically blue agave or just agave in general. Tequila by Mexican law must be at least half blue agave. Other agaves can also make drinks. Mezcal is just any old agave. Now, that agave bourbon was good, even in a sample cup, but it was sweet, and I was afraid it might get cloying. But I went back, I'd seen the Devil's River on the shelf and kind of dithered. I want to try everything from Texas I can get, but I dithered because it's one of those smaller distilleries and you can't always depend on them to be good. But I went ahead and on the strength of that agave bourbon, I bought Devil's River Bourbon Whiskey. It says it's small batch Texas bourbon whiskey. Small batch has no legal meaning. To one distillery, a small batch may be 5 barrels. To another distillery, it may be 500 barrels. Just depends on how big the distillery is. This thing's heavy. Only thing I've found that matches it or even beats it for weight is Frey Ranch. It's 90 proof. I tried to look up the mash bill and the age, could not find any information on that at all online. On the bottle it says aged not less than 23 months. 23 months is 1 month shy of 2 years. 2 years is 24 months, which means it's too young to be a straight whiskey. It's produced and bottled by Devil's River Distillery, San Antonio, Texas. It does not say distilled by Devil's River Distillery, which means they did not distill this. I don't know who did. It doesn't tell me where the distillery is at. By default, one presumes MGP, the gigantic distillery in Lawrenceburg, Indiana, which, even though they now have a few of their own brands, largely makes whiskey for other people to bottle and sell. I'm going to presume that. I could be wrong. It could come from somewhere else. So Devil's River is what they call, at least on this, a non-distiller producer. It doesn't distill whiskey, it produces it. Sometimes they'll take it right off the still, put it in their own barrels, in their own warehouse, age it on their own property. Sometimes they'll take already aged whiskey, do whatever they want to with it and sell it. But they're not distilling it, they're just producing it. A technicality, but not a trivial one. So we don't know the mash bill. All we know for sure is that it is at least 23 months old, 1 month shy of 2 years. And we know that they produce it in Texas. The first glass I had of this, and this is my third glass you just saw me pour, I've learned the hard way to not review something, and I'm going to hit pause before I do this because I need to really revamp things real quick. Okay, this setup I'm trying tonight, I'm doing to get the bottle up and help you see the label better. It is not working out quite as well as I had hoped, so I'm probably not going to do it again. And I had to adjust things so that I didn't have a sudden fall into my lap, which at the very least would be painful as things landed on my lap. So, I was saying this is my third glass. I've made it a habit in the past couple of years, I guess, to not review anything until at least the third glass. Sometimes the first glass is just the same as the whole rest of the bottle. Sometimes, not often, but sometimes I have found the first glass to be the best glass in the bottle. And sometimes the first glass, however good or bad it is the worst glass in the bottle because the whiskey opens up. There are those who are categorical on the neck pour being no good. They need to go on experience and not tradition, because in my experience, it can go any of those three ways. But this Devil's River here, on this third glass, has given me a right good nose. Let me see if I can sort it out, because I'm getting just a single impression. On the first glass, I didn't have this kind of trouble. On the second glass, it was more complex, but I still didn't have this kind of trouble. But on this third glass, I'm having trouble sorting things out, and if I put my nose deeper into the glass to try to aid that, even at 90 proof, it's kind of spiking my nose. There's an amalgam here of honey and butter and something floral, maybe butterscotch or caramel, but it's all melded together, and I'm having trouble getting discrete notes out of it. And if you've been listening to or watching my videos, I should say, much at all, you'll wonder at how all of a sudden I'm saying amalgam and discrete. And by the way, this is not the discrete that means careful. It's the discrete that means specific or separate. This is D-I-S-C-R-E-T-E. You just change the order of the last two letters. But I'm having trouble here because it is an amalgam. Everything's blended. It's a melting pot. But it's a nice nose. I'm not saying it's... Please don't misunderstand me. And a lot of times, the more trouble you have picking out specific notes, if you're experienced at least in evaluating whiskey, the more complex it is. There's more there competing for your attention. But it's definitely a pleasant nose. In fact, that's too Weasley a word. It's too mild a word. It's a nice nose. I like the nose. Something almost velvety about it. Now, I did look at the Devil's River website as I was trying to find the mash bill, and the only thing I know is that they say that it has a lot of rye. They've reduced the corn, increased the rye. So it's a high rye bourbon. And very seldom am I able to tell a high rye bourbon from a standard rye bourbon. And even what high rye is, there's no real specific definition. K.C. Allen of Beautiful Bourbon, and you've heard me refer to him before, figures that 18% or better is a high rye bourbon. I figure about 20 simply because that's an easier number to work with for me. But this is a nice, gentle, soft nose. You wouldn't think it's a high rye nose. Nothing spiky except the alcohol. Nothing spiky, nothing sharp, nothing spicy in the nose at all. And I'm just not able to get anything more specific than I've told you, so I'm going to try the mouthfeel. This is 90 proof, which is generally speaking the lowest proof I want. There's some good whiskey at 90 proof, don't misunderstand me. But 90 proof is, anything below that is too weak for me. If you're just beginning to drink whiskey, you'll want to start at 80, the minimum legal proof for whiskey, unless you have experience with other distilled spirits, in which case maybe 80 proof would be too low for you. But as a general rule, when you're starting out, start at 80 and work up. This is 90 proof, which is about the lowest, as I say, that I like, but it's a little bit thin on the mouthfeel even for 90. Not getting anything more on the nose, so let me try some flavor. As soon as I swallowed, a little bit of heat. But on the palate, I got honey, a little hint of something floral, something citrus, and I do not commonly get citrus in my whiskey. Some people pick it up pretty regular, and of course some whiskeys will have more of it than others. Some might not have any, even for those whose palates lean that way. But I don't often get citrus, and when I do, I tend to get a faint enough note that I have trouble being more specific, as I am here. In addition to what I mentioned before, I got me a burst of cinnamon when I first took it in. Then I got brown sugar, typical bourbon notes. But then I got something I have never gotten before from any whiskey: powdered sugar. Now, I don't like powdered sugar much. I don't eat powdered sugar donuts. I don't want it on my cake, nothing like that. It has always felt funny in my mouth, and it doesn't taste like sugar. Although maybe my taste is distorted. I used to eat sugar cubes back when they were real common. I don't know when I've seen any sugar cubes, but we used to have them at the house, and I'd eat on them. Just grab one and eat it, chew it. But I got that powdered sugar note on the palate, and that's odd. I'm not used to that. By the way, well, no, there's no point in that. I'm not talking live, so whatever's in here is not working too well. There's a horrible episode of the original Star Trek. I believe it's third season, which is where things really went to pot. But I could be wrong on that. I'm a Trekkie, but I'm not a big nerd about it. And yes, Trek-E. I was a Trekkie before anybody ever started saying Trekker. I've been a Trekkie since 1966, folks. But anyway, in this episode of Star Trek, through weird scientific gobbledygook, these really dumb women managed to successfully surgically remove Spock's brain, take it back to where they live, and install it as the new controller for their underground environment. Well, they take Spock's body, which I don't believe it either, but they're able to keep alive, and it walks because McCoy has a control box and all this. McCoy, Kirk, seems like there's somebody else I can't remember. Whenever I get a chance to watch that episode, I choose instead to hit myself on the toe with a hammer. It's more pleasant. But they get down there, they confront the women, they demand Spock's brain, and finally the leader of these women bursts out, "Brain and brain, what is brain? What is brain? What is a brain, and where do I download it from? And is there an operating manual to teach me how to use it? Was I born dumb, or did I work at it?" Yes. I'm not dumb exactly. I'm not no genius. I'm middling smart, I suppose. I use what I have, which puts me ahead of a lot of people who have a higher IQ than I do, because they don't use what they got. Nope, I still can't. I thought I got something else there, just for a split instant. some kind of a chocolatey note, maybe? I'm not picking it up again. I was a-talking and it flashed across my nose, and by the time I realized I'd smelt something, my brain had run off with my mouth and vice versa, and so I can't swear to you what it was I got. That time the taste, while not dispensing with everything else, had this really buttery overlay that saturated everything else. Every sip I've taken tonight on this whiskey has been different and better. And that's another thing you'll find with complex whiskeys, is you won't necessarily get the same thing every sip. Now, it's standard knowledge among people who've been drinking whiskey any length of time, appreciating whiskey. You can call it drinking whiskey. Technically that is drinking whiskey. It's also not appreciating whiskey. But those who've been appreciating whiskey for any length of time understand that from one day to the next, your palate can change. From one time of day to the next, your palate can change. What you've eaten can alter your palate. Your mood can alter your palate. Sometimes you don't know why, but your palate's different. But palates, at least in my personal experience, and based on what I've heard and read from others, palates don't change that radically over a span of seconds or minutes. So, wherever they make this whiskey, at 90 proof, it's far more complex than I thought when I started this review, and much, much, much more complex than the first glass led me to think. I'm probably going to go back at some point and buy that agave bourbon, because this is turning out so good. I might want to let that agave bourbon open up and maybe lose some of that too sweetness, or potentially too sweetness. That was like a mouthful of citrusy, caramelly candy. I could keep sipping all night and giving you new notes all night. I ain't gonna do that. Let's just say that this has got a lot more complexity than I ever believed it did. Let me give you the finish of it all. I can do a fake British accent, and it's obviously fake. I have nothing to offer but blood, toil, tears, and sweat. You may recognize the words. The accent probably doesn't sound a thing like the man himself, and that's the best I can do. Finish sip. A little alcohol sting, some faint citrus, lemon I think, getting a black pepper heat down through here. It is not a complex finish. That's about all I'm getting. But I generally get less on the finish than I do on the palate, and less on the palate than I do on the nose. So I don't panic if I don't get much on the finish. That's For me, that's SOP. But it's not a bad finish. It's a pleasant finish. And once again, that's too weak a word. It's a nice finish. I like it. It just doesn't have a lot to it. Summary. I don't know if you can find Devil's River, this bottle or any other. I honestly don't know if they're distilling their own agave bourbon. If they are, why aren't they distilling this? Or maybe the agave bourbon is just now coming up, all sorts of ways to blather about that. I don't know if there's distribution in your area. I'd never heard of this till the day I bought this, which, by the way, I got it on the 24th of March of 2026. I mentioned it, Kelly Liquors. It cost me $35.90, so $36. And on the first glass, I wasn't certain that I'd got my money's worth. On the second glass, I thought, maybe. On this third glass, I'm beginning to think it's worth $36. At the rate things are going, by the fourth glass, it'll be a $50 bottle. Or worth that anyway. But we'll see. Generally speaking, a whiskey opens up to a certain point, and that's it. Laphroaig 10 is the only whiskey I've ever had, a Scottish whiskey from Islay, one of the Inner Hebrides. It's the only whiskey I've ever had where every single glass of every single bottle is slightly different. It's always Laphroaig, but it's never exactly the same. It opens up from the time you pull the cork till the time you take your last sip. It just keeps opening up. This, I doubt, is going to do that. But it is not bad. And I started in to summarize and then got sidetracked. You might not be able to find it. If you can, I recommend you buy it. It's not the heartiest recommendation I can give. It's not the best whiskey I've ever had, but go ahead and buy it. If you like bourbon that's sweet and fruity, citrusy. I don't know if fruity is quite the right word. Fruity is Old Granddad 114 or Bluff Springs. That's a very fruity bourbon. It tastes like Buffalo Trace bourbon, only much better. And it's a lot more available, and about $25. But I know I haven't been able to give you anything very specific tonight. But if based on what I have been able to say, you think this is a profile you like, buy it. It's $36, but it's only $36. You're not going to be out $70 if you don't like it. And I've found that drinking whiskey, sometimes you spend money and you learn not to spend money on that ever again. Not much of a summary, or not very detailed summary, but as I say, I've not been able to get detail from this whiskey. The rating scale. I am Dracula. What? I can't remember what reminded me at work, and I can't remember why I thought of it now, but something at work reminded me of Bela Lugosi's line as Dracula in the 1930 movie, "I never drink wine." I don't believe that line is in the book. I've read the book much more than I've seen the movie. But in the book, and I always hear Dracula's voice and Bela Lugosi's voice, even though Bela was actually Hungarian, from Transylvania, but not from the Romanian part. But Dracula in the book says, "I have already dined and I do not sup. Anyway, the rating. Well, it's not, by the way, just in case this is the first review of mine you've seen, it has 8 levels, 1 at the bottom, 8 at the top. It's definitely better than level 4, which is okay. I'm going to give it a 5, which is good. This is a Hick rating scale, mind. Goes bad, per, mediocre, okay, good, fine, right, fine, and mighty fine. I'm giving it good. That's 3.125 stars. 62.5 out of 100, 6.25 out of 10. Not the highest rating I could give it, but certainly a favorable one. So if you get a chance, give it a try. And now that I have rambled on, holy cow, for 31 minutes, I didn't realize I'd gone so long. I never intended to. I'm going to say, here's how.